It gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, architect Mangavesh Prabhugonkar, practicing architect from Prabhugonkar and Associates, known for transforming basic brick and mortar into extraordinary spaces.
Good day, friends. Firstly, let me thank SRM's School of Architecture and Interior Design for having invited me for this international conference on the theme Built Environment, Science and Technology. Post 2020, most of us as architects and allied consultants are going to face a huge challenge in relooking, reviewing and revisiting the kind of current design guidelines we adopt in form of architecture and planning. So today I'm going to talk about our role or significance of architects' role in terms of way forward post 2020, whether we do continue to design in the same manner the way we used to do it pre-2020, or post-COVID has actually alerted us and taken us to a different dimension in terms of what should be our new guidelines. What should be done towards a built environment? What should be done towards a natural environment? So, in a collaborative note, how do we co-invent the entire built environment? And that's the challenge that we are talking about on my session on built environment, science and technology. Gone are those days when we were designing only for the built form. In today's date, we have to see that the health constraints or safety of human being comes on the center stage, and that dictates the kind of design guidelines that we must be adopting through architecture in our planning processes. Both post-COVID 2020, there is a short-term roadmap, wherein in long-term and short-term we have certain strategies to be adopted, and on the other side we have public domain and private domain actually telling us what should be done through architects' works. So to summarize the whole thing in a nutshell, the roadmap, I've tried to put all this together in 13 different guidelines which I would be sharing now in terms of behavioral patterns of built environment, how science and technology has enveloped our entire built form into our design processes. COVID design guidelines for our built environment actually can be addressed at all the levels of stakeholders. To begin with, architects themselves within our community and the architects fraternity, allied professionals along with that. Number two to be addressed should be the policymakers who are linked to all the legislations, governance and the kind of agencies which formulate all the guidelines in terms of regulations. And third would be the masses in general. All three have to basically get into a communication network so that whatever we design gets implemented. In post-COVID 2020 design guidelines, it is very important to see that what we design gets into an implementation mode in terms of varied strategies. Some activities or some design guidelines could be immediately implemented through short-term gains, like maybe an old structure which is already existing and which cannot take a lot of design changes, or has got financial constraints, or people are already living in that, or people are already working in those built environments. We can see that how readaptive usages could be done so that the SOPs which are prevailing in today's date could be integrated with that. And second one could be, which is the long-term concept, which could be linked to the kind of long-term planning decisions which are involved, which have a lot of policy making involved. So the combination of short-term and long-term can actually help us to address varied issues in private and public domain. Another design guidelines is the one which is emerging as a building technology in terms of automation and the kind of wired models which are coming around most of the spaces that we design. Whether it is built environment on one side or whether it is natural environment on the other side, you will realize that huge network of building technology, or both during construction, during manufacturing of the building materials, and also during operations and maintenance of any building. It is building technology that envelops the entire envelope or a network over your buildings, and it is becoming so integrated that you cannot live without each other. Especially things like the lift blocks or escalators, or mechanical ventilation systems or artificial and natural lightings. These are challenging times where the entire thing revolves around health of a human being who's using that particular space. Whether the kind of hygiene levels which are required are actually given for that particular human being when he is there into that particular space. So in terms of technology, on one side we have artificial means, and on the other side we have natural means. So are we able to do justice through design guidelines by minimizing the dependency on technology? Or you have mechanical ventilation, can you reduce those kind of concepts? Can we going for passive measures of getting natural light and ventilation into your building, so that there are less vulnerable areas in terms of SOPs to be integrated into your design, especially in terms of air-conditioned spaces. So are we looking at a new dimension when we look at building technologies coming over your entire building? For old buildings, it may be a little difficult to introduce in short-term manner, but for new buildings, there can be always, we as architects can look at having a relook at building automation over your buildings. The dimension to our COVID design guidelines is on having our design features linked to adapting to the environment. When I say that, there are design guidelines which are to be executed both for short-term and long-term measures, where all the buildings we cannot adapt to its fullest when we look at it. But there are some buildings which can be looked at in the long run. Like example, whether the kind of crowd, kind of intensity which is there in any build form, is it supporting your post-COVID SOPs into your design guidelines? The connections which are happening between the building, are they working on a staggered form, or are they working on a schedules, like morning session is one particular class, evening session is another sector, night it is another third sector. So we need to see how we readapt the entire design to the existing scenario. So even in terms of places of religious interest or rituals or recreational community facilities, we have to see that how the built environment is actually getting readapted into the entire thing. Because post COVID 2020, that preparedness level of an architect through the design, whether it is making justice to the entire user groups who are involved, is going to be the challenge in today's date, in terms of time and in terms of the kind of costing which is involved in introducing this kind of SOPs and making it compatible for different standards, both in built environment and long-term environment, in terms of public and private domain. Another challenge in terms of flow management into your built environment. When I say flow management, it is directly linked to the intensity. People going in different intensities in every space, whether it is a vehicular circulation or pedestrian circulation, both at public level and private level. The flow management actually is a big challenge when you design corridors, passages, lift blocks, staircases, ramps, and the entire thing is done in such a way that the distance which is needed from human being to human being continues for maybe a couple of years till we get used to the way of living in this newer normal life. So whether the standards which are there already in existing buildings, are they helping you in this kind of format, or we need to reinvent a different dimension in terms of scales, passages, vertical dimensions, horizontal dimensions, to see that there is minimum contact with human being to human being in this kind of context of the flow management. Another thing is about having universally accepted circulation patterns. Those standards were designed for so and so circulation where COVID never existed. But post-COVID, even this kind of standards which are there in public and private areas, right from a traffic signal when you cross at a zebra junction, up to a point when you go to a washroom, all design guidelines have to be revisited in terms of how you look at the flow management, and especially the touch and contact that you do in terms of stainless steel railing or a door handle or a staircase or a door frame. It is very important to see how you respect that kind of factor, and people feel less worried and stresses are less when you have visited a place and you go back home. So we as architects have to see that flow management comes very well integrated with new SOPs of newer life in place. Part of design guidelines, on one side we have the policy makers and the architects, and the third component is the masses, that is public in general, who is the actual strength of your entire design. But it's very important to see that the planning proposals or the planning strategies that we do reach the masses. But when they reach the masses, who educates them? How do you communicate with them? So whoever is involved in this implementation plan has to see that all these proposals get communicated to the masses. And when I say communicated to the masses, architect has to address them in different dimensions. One could be the age group of kids who are up to 10 years or 15 years. Then there is middle age. Then there are senior citizens involved, or then there are people who are differently abled. So all of them need to be educated in terms of how you follow the new SOPs and take challenges of newer normal life into your entire design. As the role of architect is to basically get into an implementation plan where you actually communicate through different means and different levels within the community. Another dimension to design guidelines is on standard operating procedures. In this exercise, what happens is, we need to see globally, not only the subcontinent in Asia, globally, which are the intensity-based COVID-affected areas. And all these COVID-affected areas are some of them have completely recovered, and some are in a medium stage, and some are some are on the verge of being recovering. But the SOPs can never be in generic format which is used across the globe with similar guidelines. So based on the intensity and severe nature of COVID affected areas, we have to see that how SOPs can be readapted to region specific areas. So for we as architects, we have to see that we understand these SOPs from region to region. Especially if I compare India as an entire palette of following SOPs, you'll realize that red containment zones have different kind of SOPs, and other areas have different kind of SOPs. Also land use to land use, they are different. In terms of, you go to a commercial land use, it will be another one, recreational will be another one, residential will be another one. Different types of residential typologies, you'll have another kind of SOPs. So we as architects have to see that we analyze a layer of SOPs in such a way that they are doing justice to the kind of user group of that particular content of the place, based on the impact and severe nature of the affected areas of COVID. And only if you do that, you will realize that preparedness level of that particular place in a built environment is very well achieved. So we as architects have to see that we do justice to our design proposals in such a way that SOPs are made, tailor-made to specifically from land use to land use, region to region, and country to country.
Thank you, Architect Manguvesh Prabhugankar, for an extraordinary presentation. We will now be moving on to take a short break to play our sponsor's video, and we'll be back with our next speaker.
I believe in pushing my limits, perfecting my bowling, and never letting my team or my nation down. Just like EPCO Furniture Fittings, innovative, reliable, and truly Indian. EPCO, simplifying lives.
intelligent hardware for homes.